Okay, so starting off today's show, I wanted to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. And the Ravens are coming off one of the crazier Monday Night Football games I've ever watched. As if you missed it, the Las Vegas Raiders in the opening game of Allegiant Stadium ended up defeating the Baltimore Ravens by a final score of 33-27 with that touchdown to end the game to Zay Jones from Derek Carr, and it was a phenomenal game. And throughout the game, if I was a Ravens fan, what would have really frustrated me is not only did I think you were the better team from start to finish, I didn't necessarily think that the score was accurate of the amount of quality football each team was playing. I think the Ravens came in with a solid game plan. They were able to fluster and frustrate Derek Carr early, and still they were not able to just put their foot on the gas and knock out the Las Vegas Raiders. And with a loss in the game they really should have won, and forget all of really the opportunities they missed to start out late in the fourth quarter. But in overtime, their defense came up with a clutch interception in the red zone when it looked like for a second the Raiders were definitely going to win the game after the big completion to Bryan Edwards. They have it at the 1-yard line. The Raiders shoot themselves in the foot. And really, over the last couple years, I just feel like that is a mistake that a team like the Baltimore Ravens are usually able to take advantage of. And I totally understand. The Ravens are one of the best run, most underrated organizations in the NFL. I feel like they have been a team that has been good for the last 10 years, and they've been consistent. And even when they're not good, they're always competitive, and they always know when the right time is to make a move at an important position like quarterback. It was clear that Joe Flacco just wasn't the answer anymore in Baltimore, and they decided to zig and plan and scheme their offense around a quarterback in Lamar Jackson that, let's be honest, not a lot of people in the NFL really believed in this guy as a quarterback that could be a big-time player, and he has proven everyone wrong. And I think the Ravens and the way they've committed to him as a quarterback, even though they haven't paid him the big-time contract yet, and we're going to get to that a little bit later in this segment, but the Baltimore Ravens, over the last 2 to 3 years, they have run their organization in the perfect way, like a clinic. Steve Bisciotti, one of the better owners in the NFL, but I'm just talking about this year and this year alone. Every year, the injury bug seems to bite a team in the preseason, where in a span of a week, you just have a couple of injuries that really could kill your momentum going into the season, and a lot of injuries that, especially late in training camp and late before the season starts, when, let's be honest, you can't really sign that many quality free agents that can make that big of a difference. The Baltimore Ravens have been that team so far this offseason. They have lost 3 of their running backs between Justice Hill and J.K. Dobbins, who a lot of people were expecting to break out this season after he ended last season really well, and Gus Edwards. They lost him to a torn ACL. And not to mention, something happened to the Ravens before the start of the season in practice that, as a football fan, I don't think I've ever seen before. Have you guys ever heard of a team in practice on back-to-back plays losing 2 players to torn ACLs? Like, torn ACLs, I know they're common somewhat in sports, and they happen way more than we hope sometimes, but back-to-back plays in practice, when you see 2 of your big-time players suffer torn ACLs, that is just a killer, especially right before the season starts. That occurred last Thursday, 1 week from today, and the Ravens have also lost Marcus Peters, their best corner. The Ravens, what has made their defense so good over the last couple years is Don Wink Martindale's ability to just say, you know what, screw it. I'm blitzing every single play. I'm sending everyone at you. And the reason really over the last couple years why that's been able to work for this Baltimore Ravens team has been because their cornerback duo between Marlin Humphrey and Marcus Peters, that's one of the best duos in the league. And I think we saw on Monday Night Football when Don Wink Martindale failed to adjust to the fact that even though in the beginning of that game, him blitzing and rushing Derek Carr from start to start, it was really working. It forced a turnover. Derek Carr was flustered. It seemed like the only guy he was really targeting was Darren Waller. And the Ravens failed to adjust because as the game went on, Derek Carr kept on getting more receivers involved. The Raiders' offensive line did a much better job picking up the blitz. And Baltimore, on the first touchdown by the Raiders that we think should have won them the game, Edwards was obviously 1 yard short. That was on a blitz that the Ravens pass rushers failed to get home on. And then the eventual game-winning play, the touchdown pass to Zay Jones, Marlin Humphrey just quit on the play. I think he was just that tired from covering the Raiders receivers in man coverage this whole night. And then you go from this spot, a Monday night tough road game, to open the season. You lose an overtime game that you should have won and you played an extra quarter. You know, that's the thing about the NFL. Even when you're playing the worst teams, the games are so physical and so fast that you could lose a player. And it's one of those things where when the game ends and you didn't suffer any injuries, that is always a positive, and that is always a blessing that not a lot of people will talk about. And that's what makes bye weeks in the NFL so important, especially when it comes to the playoffs. Getting that bye and getting home field advantage is such a huge reward. But anyways, I'm concerned about the Ravens because you know who they play in week 2? Albeit it's at home and it's going to be the first game with fans in M&T Bank Stadium in over a year. But they're facing their arch nemesis, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs. And I love Lamar Jackson. I love the Baltimore Ravens, and I think the Ravens should ultimately pay him, and he deserves every single dollar he's going to get because I think when you look at Lamar's resume, you see the MVP, you see the seasons he's been able to produce the last 3 years. Lamar Jackson has been a consistent winner in the regular season, and no matter what the stats say, I think that is valuable to his team. Here's the problem. They're facing the one team that even when they've been healthy, when they've been 100%, the Kansas City Chiefs have owned the Baltimore Ravens since Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson have started facing off in 2018. And I think last year was the game that is going to stick out to you guys the most. You guys remember last year at this time, the Baltimore Ravens were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. It almost seemed a little bit like the Chiefs were in the Baltimore Ravens' heads, and all of a sudden in that Monday night game, we learned as a country there is nothing more frightening than a motivated Patrick Mahomes. And the Chiefs not only won that game on the road in Baltimore, I get it, there wasn't fans there, and with fans in the stands there on Sunday Night Football, things could change this week. But at the same time, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I think this is a terrible matchup for the Ravens. I think that all they know how to do is to blitz, and against this Chiefs offensive line that looked much better in their week 1 game against the Cleveland Browns. I know Orlando Brown did struggle a little bit, but I loved what the Chiefs rookies and their youngsters on the offensive line were able to do in that game on the right side. Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, Lucas Niang. Make sure you learn those names right now because last year the Chiefs, we saw what happened to them in the Super Bowl. Their offensive line was embarrassed, and I'm pretty sure that Andy Reid really is not going to let that ever happen again to a team that he's coaching. And the Ravens, I think, could be in trouble in this spot. I think it is a terrible matchup. I expect them to go 0-2. And here's the other thing. The AFC North is better than I expected. Not only that, I think the AFC as a conference is better than I expected. If you look at the AFC North, I'll tell you what, I know the Browns lost that heartbreaking game to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I said on my show last week, if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, this is a game that is super frustrating that you let get away. But at the same time, based on that performance, I do feel like the Browns are going to be able to beat the teams they should beat. They're one of the more talented rosters in the NFL. The reason why the Kansas City Chiefs were able to win that game was because the difference in quarterback was so large that it didn't matter how better Cleveland's roster was, and it didn't matter how well the Browns executed and their game plan was in the beginning of the game, because one team had Patrick Mahomes, the other team didn't, and Cleveland isn't going to be facing Patrick Mahomes each and every week. I think they're going to be a really good team. I think they're going to win a lot of football games. I believe in everything that Kevin Stefanski is building over there in Cleveland. I think that the Steelers, if any defense in the AFC is going to limit Kansas City, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. TJ Watt is unblockable. He is an absolute freak of nature that is ridiculously hard to stop. Like, he's that good. He deserved every single penny he got from the Steelers with his new contract extension. If Ben Roethlisberger just has a little bit left in the tank, and I know even though the Steelers were able to pull out a really nice road win to start off their season against the Buffalo Bills, their defense was really the main reason why they won that game. Even though I do think Ben Roethlisberger was able to extend drives for the Steelers and keep their offense on the field with a couple clutch throws. They were able to win the game even without Najee Harris getting going. That was the one thing last year from Pittsburgh that was a real weakness. Their offensive line wasn't good, which I don't really think it is now, but hey, they played decent against all right Bills defense, but they weren't able to run the football. And I think with Najee Harris, that could be the real game changer in Pittsburgh if their offensive line could just be decent, because I like their weapons. I think Chase Claypool is a guy that they need to get the ball more. I think they're a team to watch out for. Even the Cincinnati Bengals, I can't believe I'm saying this, and I'm not a Zach Taylor fan. I think that he's going to be gone from Cincinnati sooner rather than later. But Joe Burrow is a really good quarterback. He's going to win the Bengals games by himself. I think he's that good. I think Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, they're playmakers. I like what Cincinnati has in terms of their weapons and in terms of Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon. You also look at the AFC. The Chargers are a really good team that's going to be in the wild card hunt, considering that they're in the AFC West. I think if they were in any other division, they would be a team that could be getting legitimate Super Bowl hype right now. The Broncos looked really good in week 1. The Raiders obviously won. New England, Miami, Buffalo. I think the Ravens could be in real trouble considering the amount of massive injuries they have and just considering the fact that the AFC, I expected it to be a good conference, but if you're a Ravens fan, it's scary because it's even better than I expected. And the crazy amount of injuries that you have sustained to start off the season, I just don't know if they're going to have enough considering they're really built to play one style of football, and they're really good at that style usually. But I saw on Monday night, their offensive line was not able to block. And if you can't block, it's really hard to be a good running team. I'm officially worried about the Baltimore Ravens.